Welcome to the Taking Names Bearcast, where we interview members of the Eat Like a Bear community who are kicking butt and taking names. And for your pleasure today, we are interviewing one man who 6 years ago found himself laid up in a hospital bed, and on his hospital chart, he was so laid up, it said the only thing he could do for himself was to eat. He could eat. He could not roll over. He could not get out of bed. We will hear those details. This is after a lifelong struggle with weight. His high weight has been 350. He wasn't 350 in that hospital bed, but he was still in the struggle, and there he was stuck. And the only thing he could do was eat. Now, what was it that he did? Because as a little spoiler, we're gonna hear his amazing story from that hospital bed, the things that he did, the mindset that he adopted, that was his path out. That was his path out. Now think about that. We are in a weight loss community here at Eat Like a Bear, and imagine the situation where the only thing you can do is eat. And what is it that you're going to do? What are the choices that you're going to make? And that is what we're delving into today. I'm really excited for this interview. And you're going to see things like, wow, isn't Amanda being a little extra personal about this? The only thing he could do was eat. And after this lifelong struggle with obesity or whatever else, I'm introducing to you today someone I'm very familiar with, and you might find me being overly familiar here. This is my own father, Dwaine Rose. And so I lived through this story myself and was amazed at what he did and how many parallels we have here at Eat Like a Bear. And so those are the things we will be discussing today. So this all happened at the age of 78. My dad here today is 84 years old, and he is going to talk. We're going to get through the whole story and also the point that my dad at 84 years old has a 20-year plan for his life. We're going to discuss why he has a 20-year plan at the age of 84 and why all of us need one too. So, I am so excited to introduce you guys today to my dad. Let's bring him up on stage. And now we might have a little bit of microphone feedback or whatever else. And we're going to just do this, okay? And go with it. Okay, here we go. Welcome, Dad. Welcome to the Taking Names Bearcast. And you certainly have been a butt kicker all these years. And so we're getting some feedback, so I'm going to mute myself, but I'm going to just ask you first. Let's spend a couple of minutes on the food. So you've had a lifelong struggle with weight, and you've yo-yoed around just like the rest of us. And from that hospital bed, that was the actual same time that I was losing all my weight and that Eat Like a Bear formed. And so if you could say a little bit about what you've learned in kind of watching me along the way too, about the weight, but then we're going to get right into that whole issue of being stuck in bed. So take it over, Dad.
Well, good morning. I want you to know that when I grew up, any time that we sat around and visited with friends, we did so over a cup of coffee and with a sense of humor. And I think a sense of humor is extremely important. And so I'm going to tell you something that you either think is kind of funny or it'll just make you angry because you're a woman. One or the other, one or the other. But always look for always look for humor in your circumstances. It's important to do that. Now I have a list of stuff that I've written down that I've just found here and there, and it's called over the top living, and it's just statements that are useful. And this is one that I have on that list, and I have it down because I think it's humorous. So this is what it says. And God promised men that good and obedient wives would be found in all corners of the world. Then he made the world round. And he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we want to bring a sense of humor into it. Look for humor in your circumstances, and you'll be surprised what you find. And I want to say just two other things, and then I'll answer Mandy's question. And she's thinking, well, it's about time to do that. I want you to understand that now this is another statement off of this page of Over the Top Living, and it says that there is no past situation big enough or traumatic enough to eclipse your potential unless you insist on playing the victim. Understand that that's not what you are. If we think in terms of being a victim, if we speak in terms of being a victim, if we act like a victim, things go south. You are not a victim. And that'll take you south quicker than anything else. And then I want to say one other thing to you. And I hope that you'll hear this on a heart level. There's a future version of you. There's a future version of you that's so proud that you didn't give up. Grab a hold of that. So, wait.
Well, so now hold on, Dad, and I'm going to mute you. I get to mute you, Dad. So my dad comes to us in this interview today in the future version of himself that he was looking at in 2018. And so, Dad, but as a little background on you in 2018, now I'm gonna just remind you of the question, which is something about the eating that you've learned with Eat Like a Bear, because you have certainly struggled your whole life. And your entire family, my entire family, we are the fat branch of the family. So give us just the little nuggets that you've learned from Eat Like a Bear.
Generations, and that's not why we're here today, but it's very easy to look at the generations that have the last three that I'm aware of and see the reasons for this. But that's not what we're talking about here. The things that have made the biggest difference for me is as far as the Eat Like a Bear community and the eating thing is the eating once a day. And of course that kind of and I can easily eat once a day, maybe because I'm just not all that particularly active, physically, and eating once a day seems to do it. And even if I'm getting a little bit off from what Mandy is talking about as far as the things that we should eat, eating once a day makes a real difference. And I've learned that it's important that the thing that I eat once a day, that I think about it, and that it not only be as appropriate as I can get it, but that it be something that I really, really enjoy. And that seems to be very important. So that's what I would say.
Super. Thank you. And so anyone who's new here, I lost 140 pounds eating one giant meal a day. And I do find it to be easier to do it. It was super effective for weight loss. And one of the reasons is it just draws a boundary on your eating. You're not thinking about food all day long. That's part of what makes it easier. And so that's some of what my dad here is talking about. But so he's taken a few tools from Eat Like a Bear to help with his own weight. And because again, his high weight was 350. And I think, Dad, you're sitting in around the 220s right now. And your microphone is off, but I want to turn to the key story that we're telling here today. And that is that, so my dad had a septic staph infection, and this was back in January of 2018. And so when the story began, we didn't realize it was septic staph. It actually looked like it was deep vein thrombosis, which is so that he was like, had a clot and might have a stroke. His leg had really gotten swollen up, and I was then charged with like, you got to get your dad to the ER. And so I went to his cabin, and there's never an easy way to tell your parent like it's time to go to the ER. Some parent who doesn't like to go to the ER who does, but some are a little more grumpy about that than others, and he would be in the very grumpy category. And so I show up and I say, Dad, I'm a strong believer in free choice, and your choice today is you can go to the hospital with or without your pants on. And so Dad then got his pants on, and he was able to get to the car. And got him to the hospital, and that is where they ended up diagnosing the septic staph. But within 24 hours, I mean, his physical skill just kept declining because that infection was just this freight train barreling down the track. And so I was shocked at his decline, even after getting him to the hospital and getting him on the IV antibiotics. And I was certain we were losing him. I was making plans for calling his friends, for those kinds of things that, as the daughter, that you need to do. I was making those plans. That's how bad it was. And so I'm going to let my dad pick up on the story and tell us a little bit about his starting point when he sort of became more aware of his situation, kind of woke up in the hospital. And so I'm going to turn your mic back on, Dad.
Yeah, I remember laying in the cabin, and see, this came on very, very quickly. On Tuesday of that week, and we went to the ER on Saturday. On Tuesday of that week, I went to the board meeting. I was a member of the board of trustees up on the mountain. And afterwards, I drove to Terabella, which is about an hour drive, and did a Bible study and came back. And that was Tuesday evening. Wednesday was fine. My wife decided to go to Bakersfield for a few days, so she left, and there was no issue. Thursday, I began to realize that my foot was swelling up a little bit. But I've had problems with my feet over the years. Didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, and by Friday it was swollen up quite a lot. And then Saturday I got up and I put my feet up on some high pillows in the bedroom, and two people called me. One was my wife, and I sounded so strange that she just got in the car and came up the mountain. And the other one was my sister, who called Mandy and said, "You need to go check on your dad. Something's happening." And that's when she came over and took me to the ER and gave me the choice that I had about putting on my pants. That was a terrible, terrible thing to talk about. I wanted to do that myself. Yeah, it was kind of interesting because she came in and she said, "Dad," she said, "Do you want to go in the ER the way you are, or you want to put on your pants?" And I thought, well, boy, there's a choice. And so, and yeah, but I could at that time get the walker and walk out and get in the car. And so my wife and Mandy and myself ended up in the ER. And when I was awake enough to talk to the doctor a little bit, which was a few days later, and I couldn't even I couldn't even move my foot off the bed. I couldn't lift it off the bed at all. And he said that I had cellulitis, and I said, "What in the world is that? I'd never even heard of it before." And he said, "The cells in your body are infected." I said, "The cells in my body are," I said, "How many of them?" He said, "Pretty much all of them are infected." And so I thought that can't be good. And so I was in the hospital there for 10 days, and then got transferred to uh, to Lancaster to rehab. And I ended up there for 63 days. And what they did was they gave me a bag of antibiotics, a drip bag of antibiotics every 4 hours, every 4 hours around the clock for 6 weeks, as well as all kinds of other drugs and so forth. I think when I got home, I glowed in the dark. It was, but, but so I'm in Lancaster, and and when I get awake enough to realize what's going on, which was shortly, the next day, really after I got to Lancaster, everything in me was screaming. I mean, everything inside was all churned up. I was just full of anxiousness and fear, and I mean, everything in me was screaming. And I remember laying there, and I thought, now, what do you do with that? And I answered my own question. Said, maybe what you ought to do is what you teach. Well, now that's not a nice thing to say. You expect me to do what I teach, and what I what I teach is that when we find ourselves in a difficult situation, we need to get ourselves into a place of rest, into a place of peace, so that we can think and understand and hear and make some decisions, because we hear from a place of peace. And so over a period of about 3 days, I worked at getting to a place of peace. And it took about 3 days to do that, to decide to do it and to work on it and to choose it and choose it and choose it and choose it. And and of course, what I needed to know was, okay, is this it? If I'm out of here, then let's just, let's get her done. And if not, then I need to know that, so that I can begin to look at where I'm going from this point on. And sometime during that day, I got a real sense that I wasn't going anywhere, that that I wasn't finished yet, that I had a future. And so then I thought, okay, what is that future? That future, first of all, has to do with the fact that I can walk. And so I begin to uh, to to look at the future. We need to be led by the future. You're led by your why. We need to be led by the future. When we get up each morning, we have an urgency about the future that we're working toward, and there needs to be a sense of urgency there. Every morning, okay, today I'm doing some things that's getting me closer to the future. And the future, one of the big things of the future was that I needed to be able to walk. And so I began to see myself walking. I began to think in terms of walking. I began to ask for the healing that was necessary for that to occur. And I got, Mandy, you had a question.
Yeah, well, so clarify your physical starting point. How far at that point were you from walking?
Well, I couldn't lift my foot off the bed. They started the the rehab process right up front, and it would take at least two people just to get me out of bed into the wheelchair, and I couldn't stand up. I couldn't stand up. Now I could stand up in a walker because I could use my arms. I still had some strength in my arms, but I couldn't stand up at all without using the strength in my arms. And Lord, my legs would just fold up underneath me. They just weren't working at all. And um, so I was extremely limited in my ability to move at all. And so we go down to the rehab room and we do some exercises. And we did that, on a regular basis. And and of course I worked very hard at that, because I knew that working hard with that had a, was one of the things that was going to get me to the future that I was seeing, and I was continuing to see the future. And one problem that I had when I got to a point where I could walk a little bit on the walker, and they'd have a wheelchair behind me and somebody else behind me, being very careful and so forth. And my right knee would give out on me. My right knee would just fold up on me when I was on the walker. And so I'd kind of slump down some, and the guy with me would say, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And see, I was afraid that if they realized that my right knee was collapsing on me, that they that it would affect the rehab that they were giving me. So I didn't even tell them that was the problem. And so I just went ahead and dealt with that. I knew it was coming. Every time we did the rehab, two or three times, that knee would just give completely out, and I'd catch it. And I was catching it pretty quickly, so nobody was too terribly concerned about it. but I knew the rehab was important, and I didn't want that to affect the rehab. And so that's what happened. And so I was doing that for 63 days down there. Um, I tried during that 63 days to get rid of the catheter that I had, and I wasn't able to get rid of the catheter, which was um, a real issue. And so that's another story that we'll get to. Um, but when I went home after the 63 days, then I could walk a little bit on a walker. And what they said to me, as you mentioned earlier, what they said to me in the paperwork when I went home, and you see, they really spoke highly of my efforts in the rehab room. You know, they said you're kind of our poster boy. You know, the results have been amazing, and you've done an amazing job. And I appreciated them saying that. And when I got home, I looked at the paperwork, and it said that when I went home, what could I do by myself? And the only thing that was listed on there that I could do by myself, even after being there for 63 days, was to eat. That was the only thing. and and they said that the possibility of any real success was maybe fair.
Right. And so after this is after 10 days in the hospital, 63 days in rehab. So coming out of the hospital, he could just kind of lift his heel, his foot a little bit in bed, and needed all this assistance to get into a chair, to use the restroom. He spends 63 days in that rehab. He gets home. And so keep in mind, at home it's extremely rural. There's no care or whatever. He has to do it himself. And at that point, he, after those now 73 days since the episode, he goes home with a prognosis of fair, with only being able to eat apparently. And he's able, and I'll just recap this part, Dad, but he's able to get out of bed himself and laboredly into a walker and go about 6 feet to his restroom in his cabin. And and again with that prognosis of fair. And so what I find amazing about this, and I'd like him to talk a little bit more about, is his mindset as he was in that cabin with a fair diagnosis, with, you know, no real prognosis that he would be out, I mean, walking at all really, and much less even the ability to walk unassisted if he would choose to. And so he's going to tell us, let's talk first, Dad, just describe for us briefly your progress physically in that time, and then we're going to double back on some of your great stories about your mindset in that time. So how did you progress physically from coming home and just kind of being able to get out of bed and laboredly in that walker? What did you do to get yourself to your walking state?
Yeah, one thing that really I didn't really understand when I went home is how hard it would be to make a decision to do the work that was needed. Because when I was in Lancaster, the folks would come in and they would get me and they would help me, and they would do the exercise stuff with me. They would encourage me, and it was just kind of part of the program. And now I'm sitting in a chair in the living room, and I'm comfortable. I'm not hurting. It's not hard. I'm just sitting there and it's comfortable. And now I have a choice, and it's just me making this choice. I can choose to be comfortable right here in this chair, and that's where I'm going to always be, or I can choose to get up, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to be hard work, and I have to, but I can choose to do that. And I needed to do that about 3 times a day. And so that was my choice. And like I said, it wasn't an easy choice. And what was necessary was that I was able to see the future. I could see myself walking. And so, because I could see myself walking, because I had convinced myself that I was going to walk, then I was willing to pay the price to get out of the chair, uh, to endure the pain and the hard work at the expense of being comfortable right now. Being comfortable, um, uh, uh, things aren't often comfortable. They're often good, but comfortable isn't something that I would say is a quality of life that we just enjoy all the time. You know, most of the time we're dealing with something that might be a little bit hard, but it's good. You know, it's satisfying, but it's not necessarily comfortable. And so I would get up, and then at a point I would be able to get in on the walker, walk outside, which is very, very close, onto a deck, which was very close, and walk down the deck and back. And there was a chair out there, and I'd sit down in the chair. And then after a bit, I'd get up again and I'd walk again. And I'd walk about maybe 10 feet down and then back to start with. And I do that 3 or 4 times. And then I do that 3 times a day. And uh, so then I go back and sit in the chair. And Mandy came over there one day, and I was sitting in the chair. And I started to get up out of the chair, and I got up about like this, and I began to laugh, and sat back down, and I was laughing, and Mandy said, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "Oh," I said, "I'm laughing because I forgot that I can't walk." And, and she said, "You forgot what?" I said, "I forgot that I couldn't walk." And she said, "No, that doesn't make any sense at all." I said, "Well, actually it does." I said, "Because you see, when I'm sitting here in this chair, I'm not thinking about the fact that I can't walk. I'm not chewing on that. I'm not going to chew on that. When I'm sitting here in the chair, I'm choosing to think about the fact that I can walk. It's a future thing, but that's what I that's what that's where I'm going. And so I'm concentrating and focusing on where I'm going instead of where I am. Now I have to deal with where I am, but I don't have to chew on it and I don't have to focus on it. I focus on the end of the trip. And when you're focused on the end of the trip, then all of a sudden you're willing to pay the price to get there.
Yeah, so let me highlight real quick. So what my dad is saying is like he made this decision. He's in the universe where he's walking. And knowing that you're in that universe. So if you're like, okay, that is the universe I am choosing to be in his words, what are the steps that I'm doing to get there becomes the question. And so he pushed through the pain, the uncertainty of all of it. It wasn't uncertainty because he's now in the universe where he's walking and he knows the steps, literal steps to getting there. It requires a certain kind of commitment and activity. And so that is why he's pushing himself out of the chair and all this. And I want to just add, because you didn't answer this part, so I'm going to answer it for you. And he's talking about being out on the deck, walking 10 feet or whatever. That was not his starting point at all. His starting point was he could kind of get out of the bed and go to the bathroom. And over a couple of weeks, he would get to his living room. Then he would get to his front deck. And then he actually started by doing laps of about 3 feet, just there and back, like one lap, 3 laps. I did 3 laps today. And then he would sit on the chair. Then the laps turned into 10 feet. And then at some point, and he had a goal. He was going to walk down to the church, which is what, a half a mile or something. I'll unmute you, Dad. But you really had very incremental improvements. And your starting place was again, your prognosis of even walking at all was fair. And so you started from a really difficult place. And over some months, you progressed from that, just being able to kind of get to the bathroom. And and so those are all key points. But I just love this idea that he is expressing here about I know I'm in this world where I'm walking, and so these are the decisions I'm making. We have the same thing in weight loss every single day. If you know that you're in the world where you are 400 pounds, are you going to eat the donut today? Well, frankly, I am. I'm 400 pounds in this world. So what the flip does it matter? I might as well eat the donut because why not? Right. But if I know I'm in the world where I'm out, I'm able to hike, I've trimmed up, I can do all these things, and I know that I can do them because I have foregone the donut, then what am I likely to do in the next minute or hour or whatever? I'm likely to forego the donut. And so just so my dad, I find this very interesting because he was in that mindset, and that is what required him or allowed him fostered those decisions of sacrifice that he made. Because as he's pointing out, don't miss the key point. It would have been a lot easier to sit in the chair. And of course, he'd still be sitting in the chair. So at best, right? So, okay. So Dad, let's see. Because we have a lot here. Um, but you've clearly had this forward-looking mindset. I want to open this up to questions from Virginia and Georgia and others. They're here backstage to ask you some questions. But tell us a little bit in the spirit of this 20 or in this forward-looking mindset. Tell us a little bit about your 20-year life plan. And let me remind everyone, Dad's 84. Okay, so Dad, let us know 20 years. You have a plan. And why? Why a plan?
Actually, the truth of the matter is I won't be 84 till next month, but that's close enough. That's close enough. Um, I think everybody should have a plan. I think that whatever our age is, that we should be looking forward and working towards something. That the reality that we live in today is different than the reality that's available to us tomorrow, and we should be working toward that. Now, when I got to a point to where physically I couldn't do some of the things that I would like to do, like build a deck or go out and burn a big old brush pile or something. I couldn't do some of that, and so I decided, okay, I can't do that, but there are some things that I can do. So I need to not just sit here and chew on the fact that I can't do these other things, but I need to chew on the things that I can do. And so let me just show you this. I think I can show you this. Uh, there you go. It says 625 pages. And I have at least another 100 or 150 that I've put together uh, since I put this together. And basically, what it is a training program, not just a teaching program, but a training program. You see, when I taught at Delano High School, I taught vocational business classes, and I was teaching kids how to do something. In other words, there was a doing to it wasn't just learning some stuff, but it was learning some stuff and using it uh, uh, for a job. And so what I put together over the years is what I call a training program, and I'm still working on some of that. And I expect at some point in time, and I don't believe it'll be long, that I'll have some opportunities to use some of that. You see, when we prepare for something, when we really prepare for something that reflects us, we can expect opportunities to come to us. And so we need to be watching for that and allow that to happen. And so over the next 20 years, that's part of what I expect to do. And um, and actually, I've been working on. I decided that it wouldn't be a bad idea. I've never been one to be overly concerned with making any money. and and obviously I've always eaten regular, had plenty, but never, but never really did anything for the purpose of really making money. And so I thought maybe I think I might just do a little bit of that too. And so I'm working on a plan for that as well. And and people will look at you when you're 84 years old and think, okay, you got a 20-year plan. Now come on, get real. Well, I am real. So what if I checked out tomorrow? Okay, I still had a 20-year plan. I'm still going someplace. I'm still moving. I'm still growing. Living is a process of growth. You know, um, I heard somebody say once that the only difference between a grade and a grave and a rut are the dimensions. And so we don't want to be in a rut. We want to continue to grow and be growing into something. And when we're laid to rest, we want the day before that we were growing into something. And I think that's an important thing for all of us.
Okay, so Dad, let me clarify. So you're stuck there on that chair. You could be, wallowing in the point that you can't do massive burn piles. You guys know I love burn piles, and I got it honestly from my dad. So he wasn't able physically to do that. And so rather than focusing on what you couldn't do, you're telling us that you wrote a 650-page training manual for something that you're now leveraging, and this is part of your 20-year goal and your 20-year plan. And so if you could just, like, in a nugget for us, tell us why we all need a 20-year plan.
Because we're alive, and because we're going someplace, and we have a purpose, we have a why. And you see, it's important, I think, to understand. And I'll use Mandy, if I can call her Mandy. I know you call her Amanda, but that's not my problem. um, Mandy said that her why, when she started doing the weight loss thing, was that she could get out in the beautiful area where she lives, and walk with her boys. That was her why. Now I'm going to suggest that her why over the last few years has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. Her why is much more today than it was when she was laying on the couch, fasting for 16 days, knowing that she wasn't going to starve to death, and getting started losing the weight so that she could walk with the boys. It's much more today than it was then. And that's the way life is. Your why continues as you get a why and you work toward it. It'll begin to broaden and get bigger and deeper. Because that's the way life works. So we need to, yeah, so we need to have a plan because we're alive and we're moving and we're doing something and we're going someplace.
And it was that positive vision that you had for yourself that, in fact, was the key reason that kept you focused, that allowed you to go from not being able to lift your heel in bed to just barely being able to get out of bed in your house. To tell us, Dad, how long did it take you from getting back to your house? So you were there on about day 73. How many months were you at home before you could walk to the church, which is what, about a half a mile away?
Yeah. Oh, I would say 4 months.
That's crazy. That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, we have Georgia and Virginia backstage here to ask some questions. Georgia looks really ready. Like, I can see Georgia, like, almost like. So I'm gonna bring up Georgia, and I'm gonna mute myself too. But Georgia Bear, welcome. Good morning, Georgia. It is
Good
wonderful to have you
morning.
here. Okay, so I'm going to just let you have at it, and I'm going to mute myself. Remove myself from here too, as well. Okay, have at it. Be good to him. This is my daddy.
Good morning, Georgia.
Oh, hi, Dad. I tell you what, one of these days, I can't wait to just wrap my arms around you and hug you.
Works for
You
me.
just, Oh my gosh. You are such an inspiration. And I think that that has been my problem is I've known what I want to do, but I haven't made that steadfast plan. And to have that plan and to have that what you expect from yourself, I think that that is just, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But you're such an inspiration. I'm glad that this is being recorded because I am going to listen to you every single day. Just what you accomplished in such a short amount of time, especially when you get the diagnosis that you're not going to be able to do any of this stuff, and you've shown them that yes you are. Yes you are. And I would buy your plan. I would read every single page of it just over and over and over again because you're just so phenomenal. You really
Well,
are.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, the thing that helps, I think, is that we need to, um, all of us, if we allow ourselves to do it, and it's easy to allow ourselves to do it, we'll worry about tomorrow. We'll worry about what we're doing today and how it's going to affect tomorrow. And what we have to work toward, and it takes a little time, and it takes doing it over and over again, but choosing to hope instead of worry is important.
Yes.
And hope is an extremely important thing. And actually, I have something on this, some on this notes on the over the top living thing that 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 I've that I have some notes on. And this is what it says about hope. It says hope replaces worry. Hope is to the heart what seeds are to the earth. Without hope, life is sterile and unfruitful. Without hope, dreams won't be conceived and destinies won't be realized. Hope is the incubator where faith is formed. If there is no hope for the future, there's no faith to face it, let alone build it. Hope connects us with the future. Don't let negative, toxic people rent space in your head. Be careful how you think. You see, the way we think, and we have to realize that we can choose what we think, but we have to choose it and choose it and choose it because we have a habit of thinking in ways that aren't profitable. And so we need to first and foremost change the way that we think, and we work on it. And when we hear ourselves thinking about the things that aren't useful, then we have to say, that's not it. That's not what I'm thinking today. This is what I'm thinking today. I'm replacing it with this. And you do it over and over and over, and it begins to affect uh, your attitude. It begins to affect your life on a daily basis. It changes everything.
It
And
does.
your behavior, um, uh, and it gives you the strength, because as you do that, joy comes, and joy is a strength. And we begin to look at the hope for the future instead of chewing on the problems today. We have to work through the problems, but we have a purpose for working through the problems today because we're headed for the hope for tomorrow. And so, what we can do is work on the way that we think, and and
That
and
that's
choose
been
hope and not worry.
yeah. That has
Choose it,
been
choose it, and choose it. And of course, you might need some help with that, from folks. Uh,
well, I tell you, your daughter is what, because I had no hope until I saw the postcard from Yellowstone. And Amanda gave me that glimmer of hope that I had another time in me. And I've had my struggles, and
Sure.
especially this month, I've been searching every morning. I get up with that, what is going to be happening today? What wonderful joy am I going to find today? And I that's been my whole thing this month of March, is mastering my March mindset and
Yeah.
just knowing that I can change it, and it's made a really big difference. Really big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And choosing to do to do the things that you can do. And when I first got to Lancaster and was laying in the bed there and really unable to do much of anything, and once I got rid of all of that fear and anxiety that was inside and got into a place of rest and a place of peace, and it took some time and effort to get there, then I realized something that I think is important. I realized that, okay, Dwayne, you're in this rehab place, and look around. This is a big, big building, and there's all kinds of people in this rehab place that needs help. You're not the only one here that's got a problem.
Mhm.
And even the workers are having all kinds of problems. That they don't have enough of them, and they're not treated nicely and all that. And so my first thought was, okay, I've got some time here. So what can I do to reach out to other people? And you see, that'll tend to give us as we give into other people's lives in any way that we can, then that gives us more strength to give into our own. We're built up by giving to others as well. And so what I decided I could do, like I'm laying there thinking, well, I got a lot of time. I could pray for these people that's in this place. I could certainly do that. And I was looking at uh, the nurse assistants that came around and did all the work, and they were working really hard, and there weren't enough of them, and I began to reach out to them in kind of a special way and build a relationship with them and listen to them and so forth, and that helped. All of that helped me, especially working with the gals and the guys that helped you on a daily basis, you know. And when I was ready to leave, one of the certified nurse assistants that had worked with me over that time. It was a Sunday, and I was going to be leaving on Tuesday, and she had Monday and Tuesday off, and she said, Dwayne said, when I come back, you're not going to be here. And I said, you're right. And she said, what are you going to do when you get home? What's the first thing you're going to do? And I said, oh, I think I'll see if I can't find myself a great big old chicken salad. And she said, really? She said, you could find yourself a great big old chicken salad today. She said, lunch is coming up here in a minute. I'm going to stop your lunch and I'm going to bring you that big old chicken salad.
Aw.
And so she did. She brought me the big old chicken salad and put it down in front of me. And she said, Dwayne, that's, that's just my way of saying thank you for the way that you treated me the last couple months. And I thought, it's a terrible thing for people to have to yeah,
Yeah.
but you see, it makes it so when we reach out to other people, it helps us. And of
Mhm.
course, that's one thing that's nice about the Eat Like a Bear community. Of course, you're reaching out to other people, and I know you do that well. And people are reaching out to you, and it's an important that we um, that we don't that we don't get too tied up with the mistakes, because we're all going to make some mistakes, but we concentrate on the direction. I have a friend of mine gave me this.
Yep.
so so don't get all down on yourself because you made some mistakes. just correct the mistakes, and you may do them again. Well, correct it again. Just do it again. Just, the person who wins is the one that gets up one more time that's knocked down. And
Absolutely.
and that
Absolutely.
that's who you
Yeah.
are. And so when you feel like you've been knocked down, say, okay, well, there I go again. I'm going to get up again. I'm not done yet.
That's right.
I'm not done at all.
That's exactly what Amanda tells us. And it's just like, if you stumble, it's just a bump. It's just a bump. You got to leave it behind you because you can't change it. You just move on, change it and move on and just do better.
Yeah, sometimes we kind of beat ourselves up, and that's not a good thing. Yeah. Um, I think maybe this might be important for your question. I have here the record of Abraham Lincoln. Now, we all know who Abraham Lincoln was.
Mhm.
He was the 16th president of the United States, and some people would suggest that he might have been the best president that we've ever had. He's certainly one of them. And when you look at his record, says that at age 22, he went into business and he failed. 23, he ran for the legislature and he was defeated. At around that time, that the lady that he was going to marry died. He had a nervous breakdown, and over time, he ran for office 11 times and won 3. But this is the interesting part here. The last 10 years of his the last 10 years between ages 39 and 49. Between 39 and 49, after being beat up and all kinds of losses and so forth before that, he was defeated for Congress. He was defeated for senator. He was defeated for vice president. And at 49, he was defeated for Senate again. So at age 49, we would have looked at Abraham Lincoln and we would have called him a loser.
Mhm.
But he got up one more time, he brushed himself
Yeah.
off, and he said, I ain't done yet. And at age 51, he became president of the United States. And you see,
Mhm.
that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that you're doing, and it's important that you understand that this isn't just for you. You're having a significant effect on other people, and not just other people in the Eat Like a Bear community. And of course, you are having. I know you're having an effect there. I know that, but just the people that are around you, your family and your friends, you're making a difference for them as well, and you're going to make a bigger difference. And I think it's easy to overlook the difference that really getting into living to the fullest makes the difference that it makes in other people's lives as well as our own.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But
very true.
but you just get up one more time, and it takes some humility to get up one more time and ask for some help, or
Yes.
to ask for some help to get up one more time. It takes
Yes.
some humility, and you do that well.
Thank
You're going to get there. Let me say to you personally what I read earlier, and this is part of this over the top living stuff that I was talking about. That there's a future version of you. There's a future version of you that is so proud that you didn't give up. Now know that.
Yes, sir.
Know that.
Yeah.
Know that every day. Know that moment by moment. There's a future version of you that is so proud that you didn't give up. And I know you didn't give up.
Nope.
Before
And I
we get,
won't.
I know you didn't give up.
Well, you're just a ray of sunshine. I just love you to pieces.
Well, thank you
But
very much.
thank you. Thank you for our wonderful Amanda. And just thank you for being a part of this and sharing your experiences with us because they are very poignant to all of us. And you are so appreciated. So
Well, thank
appreciated.
you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. And know that you're special.
Thank you.
Sorry, I come in here and Virginia and I are boo-hooing backstage. I'm going to bring Virginia on too, and we'll all be on here together for just a bit and let Virginia have a little time to ask my dad things as well. But yes, wow,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
I had to go get Kleenex reinforcements. You saw me.
yes,
I was
yes,
like, my other box is empty, and I thought I can't do this because I'm gonna. I what am I gonna like wipe my face with my sweater? I don't know. Hi, Dwayne.
well,
Hi, Virginia.
I'm gonna I'm gonna remove me and Georgia and let you guys and if I can figure out how. I'm just feeling a little like I can't even focus. Okay, you guys. And so, Dad, this is Virginia. I think you know Virginia, and so I will leave you guys to it. And I feel bad like kicking Georgia off. Okay, let me remove myself first, and then I will kick off Georgia. Okay, here we.
Hi, Georgia.
Hi, Dwayne.
Hi, Virginia.
Uh, I gotta try not to cry because otherwise I can't say the things I want to say. So your story gave me an immense amount of hope during a time when I have been so uh hopeless. Um so just a little backstory. I'll try not to do it too in depth because it's long, but so my husband Gary, who is 70, had a back surgery because he had really bad pain and spinal stenosis. He had that back surgery on July 26th. And, basically when we consulted with the orthopedic surgeon, they said, oh, 3 or 4 days and he'll be up starting to walk and they'll do physical therapy and, da 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 da. Well, he's a 100% disabled Vietnam veteran, and so he gets all his care through the VA. And so, we trust the VA, and he goes in for surgery on July 26th for his back and spent 5 days drugged and in awful condition in the hospital. And then they decided to send him to rehab, which was 100 times worse than anything I could ever imagine a rehab facility being. It was terrible. And after about 3 days in that rehab facility, he got a huge, raging UTI, urinary tract infection, which sent him back to the hospital where he went into the emergency room. They had to drain his bladder again. He also was on a catheter, which I have questions about. Ended up testing positive for COVID, so they left him in the hospital in isolation for 3 days, and he tested negative, which is weird, but whatever. Ended up being back in the hospital for a total of 30 days because I said, you're not sending him back to that rehab facility. I will drag him home on my back before I let you send him back there. So he stayed in that hospital for 30 days. And he was exactly like what you described. He couldn't even lift his foot off the bed. He has a genetic blood clot disorder and has been on warfarin for 28 years. And so it was no surprise that during that surgery, he got another blood clot in his thigh. So they were very cautious of him doing much. So his rehab was very cautious, but still started doing rehab. They discharged him home on August 25th and he got home health care. His back incision was still open at that time. So we had to pack his wound every single day. A nurse would come out. If the nurse didn't come, I had to do it. Packing his wound and taking care of that wound care, still had a catheter in. They would come out with physical therapy 3 times a week, and the nurse would come out every day and they would do the wound care and everything, but this incision's still open. And he just wasn't getting like much better, we thought. At some point in all of that, right before October, right in the beginning of October, his incision actually opened up, and took him back to the hospital, to the emergency room, and they found out that he had MRSA, which is a highly, highly resistant strain of bacteria. They had to go in and do a second surgery and clean the whole incision out, and debridement and irrigation. They put in these antibiotic beads inside of him, closed him back up, started him on MRSA treatment. He was in that hospital stay for 10 more days at the hospital, and then came home the second time. Again with the catheter, again with a daily nurse care, physical therapy at home. I had to do twice daily IV antibiotics for 90 minutes on him for 6 weeks at home. And then we've been dealing with this fact that he still has a catheter in 8 months later. And everything I've learned about catheters, I've learned on my own, through the great wide internet and Facebook groups. And we've learned a lot, and we've tried different things. He's had all the testing done and all of that, and they just say, well, your bladder doesn't empty all the way. And so he still has a catheter in. We use a device called a flip flow, which lets him not have a bag on during the day, but we put him on the bag at night. And so that's my question for you, I guess, is aside from the fact that you give such hope and inspiration and all of, the plan moving forward, and how we can, be positive throughout all of this. And I will say, he has a pretty good attitude. He can only walk with his rollator. He gets physical therapy 3 times a week at home, like I said. His 2 goals are to walk again and to play his guitar, which he can do, but it gives him a lot of pain. And we're still working on the pain. He can't take pain medication. He can only take Tylenol. And we're hoping maybe he can get his nerve burnt or something. They say that might help with the rest of the pain, the residual pain that he has. But we don't know that. So he still is in a lot of pain, and we're working on walking. And in fact, yesterday, what you talked about, visualizing yourself, right? Doing the thing that you want to do. And so yesterday he had mentioned that, he was starting to feel stronger in his balance and his ability to walk. And so he had walked from one end of the bed to the other end of the bed, just being able to like hold on to the bed or the window, and without the rollator. So I said, well, why don't you go to sleep tonight and have a vision that you're going to walk just with a cane, and see how that feels in your dreams and in your mind. And so we did that last night. I just sort of put that thought in his head, and he went to sleep last night. But my main question for you is how you dealt with catheter use, because I think that the world doesn't know. They think, oh, I go to surgery and they put a catheter in because they have to, and then they take it out and I go home. Well, what happens is, if you have to have a catheter, they just throw it at you, throw these supplies at you, and send you out the door with like little to no training, no information, it's just, here you go. We'll see you in 3 months. Bye. And that's really what we've been dealing with for 8 months now. You're muted, Dwayne. I don't know if Amanda did that or not, but
Okay.
yeah.
So am I muted now?
Nope, you're good.
Oh, I better be careful now, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me mention one thing, and then we'll talk about the catheter thing a little bit. Somebody, I was talking to to a lady that I know on the telephone about a week ago, and she said to me, she said, and she's having some significant problems, and she said, I'm gonna try to do this, and I said, it won't work, and she said, what do you mean it won't work? I said, what you're doing is you're talking about your intentions, and it's important that you identify the outcome and not the intention. So, because the attitude is different. When you think in terms of uh, of intention, you say, okay, I'm going to try this. I hope that it works. And when you um, talk about when you identify the outcome and you work toward the outcome, then you're going to work toward that until you get it, because that's the plan. The
Right.
plan isn't just to try, and I probably won't get there, but the plan is to identify the outcome and work at it and work at it, and it might be very, very little bit at a time. And the things that you're beginning to do now, the little things, work on those. That's going to make a difference, and expect them to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. The catheter thing is an issue, um, and I, when when I was in Lancaster, I couldn't get rid of the catheter. So when I got home, I still had it, and so I made an appointment with a urologist, and was able to have an appointment about 3 weeks after I got home. And I went home, and they discovered that I had a big old yellow stone in my bladder, and that's why I couldn't get rid of the catheter. And so then I had to make an appointment to get rid of the yellow stone, and I did that. And then they put the catheter back in, and I go back in to see the urologist. And by then I'd had this catheter for about 4 months. And so it was real clear that that urologist was really saying to me, without saying it just right out, was making it pretty clear that I wasn't going to get rid of that catheter because I'd had it too long. And I thought, that's not what I'm looking for. you know, and you don't get prideful over this stuff, but I was thinking that's not my plan anyhow. That's not what I'm expecting. That's not where I believe it's going, and so um, um, after I was about 2 weeks after they blasted the stone, and I went back, and they took the catheter out. And like I said, he didn't expect anything to work, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
It did, and I realized how unusual that was, and how fortunate I was.
Wow.
And I think that part of that had to do with the expectation and with the thinking, and with with the future that you were seeing. And um, so take the things where the walking. He says, "I want to walk." That's good, and you've taken some steps in that direction,
Right.
and encourage him in that. Help him in that, so that he doesn't have to make that decision all by himself.
And
You
I
know,
will say one thing here
yeah,
that you're not having someone else there to care for you probably made you heal quicker than I
oh,
have to watch that I don't do too much, right? I have to
yeah.
be able to say, like, I'm going to just walk away while you struggle to get your clothes on or whatever.
Well, yeah. No, my wife was there.
Oh, she was. Okay.
She was there, but she wasn't involved with the exercise programs and stuff like that. She helped me with the stuff that I couldn't do. But as far as the rehab, the stuff, uh, that was mine. I had to decide that, and she really wasn't involved with that. But she was there to help
Personal
with
care.
other things that I needed. Yeah, yeah. So
I know all about personal care, Dwayne.
yes, yeah. We don't have to get uh,
No, we
too
won't get
specific about that.
no, and I actually told my husband, I said, that nobody's going to come out of the woodwork and say, hey, how about we try to get you off of this thing and let's do this and let's do that. They're just not going to do that. That is not
No.
like,
Now, the medical community isn't very useful and all that. If they
no.
can't cut something off or give you a drug, they're not too much value, you know. And I've had some things cut that I really appreciated that were there to do that. Uh, but they could be much more helpful when it comes to actually being healthy. It's really not a health system. It's a
Right.
system that just sort of handles sickness.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so you have to take responsibility for that. And
Right.
so for him to be careful about what he's eating and to begin to make little strides in the exercise stuff, a little bit at a time, and work toward a future. That's what he can do.
Yeah. And
And
he
and,
can
and
he
he
can
will.
walk with his rollator. Like the farthest he's gone is we go out our front door, down our driveway, and we go down the road out here by our house, and he can get down to like the neighbor's mailbox and then
Mhm.
back. And that's quite a significant feat.
That that's good.
He couldn't lift his leg like you from his bed when we started
Yeah,
this, you know.
that's a whole lot better than nothing. And
Yeah.
it's getting better, and know that it's getting better.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's slow, and you have to realize how slow it is, and that
Mhm.
you just as long as you're continuing to make progress, and
Yeah,
you
appreciate the small stuff. Now,
yeah,
one thing that's been important for me is, even now, if I'm in a chair and it doesn't have any arms on it,
yeah,
then getting up out of it is a little bit of work.
yeah,
It's a little bit of effort. It takes some effort, and it's a little bit painful.
mhm,
And so when I'm in a situation like that, I'll kind of scoot forward to get up to and and uh, and I'll hesitate. And if there's somebody there, they'll try to help me. And I'll say to them, I don't need any help. And say, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm I'm thinking about my reaction when I'm getting off the chair because the way I'll react if I don't take control over it is I'll get angry because it's hard to get up out of that chair.
mhm,
And so what I choose is to be thankful that I can get out of the chair because it wasn't too long ago when it wasn't an option at all. And
right,
so I need to appreciate the fact that I can get out and I need to be thankful for that. And
right,
so I needed to move in a place of thankfulness instead of a place of anger. And so I'll take a moment to make that choice.
right, right. Oh, that's fantastic. I was taking notes the whole time you were talking, Dwayne. You just have your spirit of positivity and caring just is amazing to me, and it's no wonder you have such a great daughters, Kimberly too. But Amanda has done so much for the world, and I think there's way more to come. Just like you said,
Yeah,
you
there is.
Amanda's 20-year plan. Holy cow! What's gonna happen next?
Okay, I'll come back. I'll come back, and I'm going to bring up Georgia too. So we'll have our grand finale here. I'll unmute Georgia. So who knows how our audio is going to be with all four of us unmuted. But 100% on the gratefulness, on that, just shifting our minds towards like having that response that is positive, that is grateful about whatever it is. And it's hard to do that. It is very hard to do that.
You have to make, I know that when I start to get out of that chair, if I don't make the decision to be thankful, I'm just going to be angry. I mean, that's just a fact. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, it just is. And so you have to kind of learn how to fight the fight. We, um, when you're a young person and you have kids, and if you're a father or a mother, you never know what you're doing. I mean, when Kimberly and Mandy were young, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I had never been a father before. I didn't know what I was doing, but there was a few things that I hoped would happen that I knew a little bit about. And one of the things was it just that they would be trained so that they would be able to get a job and be self-sufficient economically. I thought that was very important. And I thought it was important to empower them, but not enable them, to make things a little bit hard for them occasionally. And they know that we did that. And to train them how to fight and to know that failure just simply isn't an option. And there's something on this over the top living thing that I wrote down that I think kind of makes it clear when I'm talking about fighting, because this is what we're doing. This is what it says. We need to learn to fight. And when we have to fight, and we will, we need to fight with a sense of urgency. We fight like we're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and it's beginning to rain.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. So, oh my gosh. So, Dad, so when I'm at your place next, I will look at the, we're going to go through this. Maybe you could flag some things that like the bears need to know this thing, and we'll get some pieces of this out there. So, yes, the third monkey.
Yep. Sometimes we feel like we're the third monkey on the ramp, and so that's the sense of urgency that we need to have. So I just, when I saw that, I thought that's got to be part of the list.
For sure. Okay. Well, Dad, I thank you for coming today and help, and so we will get some of these things from your binder for sure. This is awesome. And so now what we do, we're already late. We're past time because Dad, at 10 a.m. every day in the Deep Den, we have what we call the Project Hub. And that's where we end up in very much like a little interface that looks like this, and we chat. And so I don't know if those of us who are here are completely chatted out, but there'll be some people back there chatting, because you can guarantee that. Okay. But thanks so much for coming on today, Dad. And we'll catch you around, and maybe try to get you into some of these little groups too, where some of us are hanging out. All right.
And
Virginia, thank you.
Come give you a hug in person, Dwaine. I live only about 3 hours, so I might see you soon.
I'm ready to jump on a plane.
Yeah.
You guys have a great day. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. See everybody. See you around, everybody. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.